Hi, today I'm going to show you the EzGrain 2, which is an instrument I designed using Max MSP, Touch OSC, and Osculator. It takes a sample of your choice and divides it into lots of smaller samples, basically doing granular synthesis, which is then able to be played back in a number of different ways as defined by the user using the parameters I have set up here. And the EzGrain 2 is just that twice, so you can take two samples and affect them both separately using the EzGrain. And I'll walk you through how it works here. First using just Max and then using Touch OSC and Osculator, which gives you wireless control over the patch. So if you're just going to do it in Max, you start off by taking your two samples, you drop them in the load file. You've got your two samples here. So this is one instrument with one sample, second instrument, second sample, completely different. If I turn up the gain here and then turn on the audio, which is right here in the middle, here I've got two separate samples. Turn off this one over here and just focus on this, so I'll show you all the parameters of the EzGrain. Turn it down. Alright, so right now you're just hearing the sample being played back normally. There's no granular synthesis happening. It's just being played back with, well, the only thing that's been happening is this is a smoothing parameter, which is a low pass filter. So if I had it turned up, you can hear it turns. It's a little bit low pass. There's a normalization button here, just hit 0. Goes back to no low pass filter. That's for smoothing. As you get more into the granular, you'll have some clicks and pops from the audio jumping around, and that helps keep it from being like annoying or making it sound bad. We'll just leave it at 0 for now. So before we even start with the granular, this grain speed parameter right over here on the left, when the granulizer has been implemented, this works differently, but when the sample's playing back normally, this just works as a playback speed. So got it at 1, it's playing back normally, but if you just turn it up a little bit, you'll hear that speed up. You know, kind of like hitting fast forward on a tape machine. Pitch goes up, tempo goes up, just like you'd expect. Let's set it back to 1. Alright, pretty standard so far. So now we go up in the corner and we can turn on Granulize, which is this toggle button right up here. Hit it, and now the sample's been divided into these pieces. What this I table is a visualization of the samples, the number of samples that the number of grains, I should say, that the sample's been divided into, and then the order in which they're being played back. So right now we've got 16. Using this menu over here, you can choose any number of these presets from 8 up to like 64 to 32. These are all good for like beat slicing if you want to do some beat chopping or whatever. Up to the higher numbers, which give you more control over kind of the sound of the sample, and you can make it do some cool stuff if you go up into the higher numbers. So let's put it up a nice 1024. You notice this slider here moved as I did this. And what the slider is another way of controlling the number of grains. If you have like a very large sample, or you want to divide the sample up into really tiny pieces, you can just pull this over all the way up to 44,100 samples, which if you have 1 second sample, you could theoretically do 1 grain for every sample if you sampled something at 44.1K, but I haven't tried that yet, so that could be crazy. We'll set it back down here. 2,000. Sounds good. So now it's been divided into grains, we can do some fun stuff with it. You go up here, I've got a U menu controlling the direction, so you can play it forwards like it is now, or backwards. Not that cool, but it's something. Or if you want, you can hit line, which just chooses 1 grain and then plays it over and over and over. You'll see it just hit. There it is. you can control the position of that line using this slider. Cool, fun stuff. Send it back going forwards. Now the really special thing about this patch that kind of sets it apart is the fact that you can draw in the way you want the sample to be played back on the I table, just by simply drawing on the I table. Which you can get some really cool effects, gives you a lot of really in-depth control over how you want the sound to be played. Start making your sound by, drawing pictures on the I table. Cool stuff. And you can hear it's got kind of the clipping, the clips I was talking about, so a little bit of smoothing helps that out a lot. Let's send it back to being normal forward. And let's turn it down to about 64 now to show you a couple other features. Now, what can be really cool about this is this random grain button up here is great for it really responds differently depending on how many grains you've divided the sample into. So if we've got like 64, 32, or 8, something that's good for beat slicing, you turn it on, it's going to give you kind of more like a random beat generator. Right now it's kind of, you're still getting the sounds there. If you turn it down even more, say to like 32 or 16, kind of getting random beats going on. It's kind of cool. You add in some drawing, and who knows what you're gonna get. Send it forward. But if you turn the grains up a good bit into the higher numbers, you get the more classic kind of granular synthesis sound. Everything kind of swirling around, bubbling up. It's classic. Cool stuff. You turn it off. Right back to normal. If you go back down to the grain speed here that just affected the playback speed when the granulizer was off, it does the same thing now but a little bit differently. Now when you affect the grain speed, now, the tempo will stay the same but the pitch will change, because what it's now doing is changing the amount of the speed that each grain is played back at. So as each grain is played faster, the pitch will go up, but because the grains are still being played in the same order and for the same amount of time, the tempo won't change. So if we speed it up, fun stuff, turn it down. Now when you're playing it backwards, when there's a lot of grains, you can't really tell much difference, but if you send it back down to like 16 or 32, you get kind of like these backwards snippets all being played in the right order, but it's a kind of a cool effect. So I'm going to turn it to -1. So the grains are being played in the right order, but each chunk is being played backwards, so when you've got smaller grains like this, where each one's kind of, a couple beats or like a measure, you get kind of like the same feel, or like, you get the impression it's still moving the same direction, but it's backwards, and it's a nice effect. It's pretty cool. Let's send everything going forwards again at 16. Normalize everything here.